I'd like to call the meeting of the Camarillo Sanitary District to order, and would the secretary please call the roll?
Director Kildee?
Here.
Director Little?
Here.
Director Morgan?
Here.
Secretary McDonald?
I'm here, thank you. The next item would be the flag salute. Mr. Kildee, would you lead us this evening?
Place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Do we have any amendments to this agenda?
There are no amendments.
Thank you. Anything from the board? If not, we move on to the consent calendar.
Microphone, Bill.
An item on the, item B on the consent? Okay, I would assume that would be Mr. Fox's territory, or Mr. Campbell's territory, perhaps. Okay. Yes, please.
Bill, I think your microphone might be off.
Oh, go ahead, yes,
I'm
please.
sorry, I didn't hear you.
The question I have is that to amend the contract with the firm is, or the work to provide a refresh for the budget and capital improvement is about $10,000. And there is then a increase to $26,000. I'm just trying to find out why there's a significant, which is attributable, according to the report, to the Stage 2 water alert. And my question is, what are they going to be doing that's going to be changing it from 10,000 to almost 27,000?
Sure, I can answer that question. The $26,770 is an estimated amount, and it's meant to be a not-to-exceed amount.
Mm-hmm.
And what it is meant to do is to, number one, do the refresh, which was planned at the time that we first entered into the agreement, but then also to account for any changes that need to be adjusted in the model, perhaps in response to the Stage 2 water supply alert or the conservation efforts, and then also, depending on the recycled operations, how much of that needs to be incorporated into the long-term model. We recognize at one point we said we were just going to allow it to stand and then address it during the next cycle, but this provides the opportunity once the consultant begins on the work, if there are some things that are necessary to adjust the model now, he has that ability to do so, and that would be at staff direction.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your questions?
Yes.
Okay. So we're at the consent calendar. Do we have a motion?
Move the approval of consent calendar.
I'll second the motion.
A motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Not, please vote. And that does pass 4 yes with Chairman Craven absent. We now move on to departmental items, the first one being a memorandum of understanding, the 2014 NPDES permit appeal efforts. This is McGovern, it looks like.
Let me make sure I got the microphone on. Lucy, there you go.
Okay. Good evening, members of the board. For the record, I'm here for staff for the Camarillo Sanitary District. And up for your consideration is entering into a cost-sharing agreement for technical and legal services related to the 2014 NPDES permit appeals efforts. And just a little bit of background historically, why this is up for your consideration is, especially for Director Little, is 10 years ago, Camarillo Sanitary District, along with the cities of Thousand Oaks and Simi Valley, have entered into similar types of cost-sharing agreements for regulatory type efforts. It seems like we all have the similar concerns regarding regulations, and we entered into some long-term cost-sharing, very expensive cost-sharing agreements back in 2013, 2014, 2004, and those efforts have been completed, and so the group has been basically inactive. And so now with the NPDES permit renewal process, there was some money left over as part of the original memorandums of understanding, and so we used that money up for our technical and legal review efforts. But now that money has run out. Our memorandums of understanding have been expired, and so for your consideration is this new and updated memorandum. And what the technical and legal efforts are is the NPDES permits for all three agencies were approved back in May. There are three main areas that the three agencies appealed the permits with. One set of appeals was with the State Water Resources Control Board, and the other set was with the U.S. EPA. Now, the State Water Resources Control Board appeals related to some of the salts limits, effluent salts limits that were put in the permits, some of the toxicity limits that were in the permits, and the way that toxicity was being measured for determining compliance or not. So those are the three main areas that were appealed under the state board that is currently on file, and we have about a year for them to hear the appeals process. The other set is an indirect appeal or a lawsuit, and that is with U.S. EPA, and it relates to the main part of it is a toxicity and not using an approved method to determine compliance. So the cost for these two appeals is overall it's $40,000 right now. That's the estimate. $20,000 for the State Water Resources Control Board efforts and $20,000 for the U.S. EPA. The U.S. EPA lawsuit is being handled by wastewater, I guess, association, the SCAP, and so we are paying our efforts or our $20,000 towards that lawsuit that other wastewater agencies will be joining efforts on. So for your consideration, there's an MOA attached to the item. It's similar. It's similarly written to the previous ones. There's also. So we're also recommending that you authorize a transfer of funds to the JPA group and the actual payment directly to SCAP for the US EPA lawsuit. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions. I'm ready to answer questions.
Do we have any questions? Mr. Morgan?
Lucy, a couple things. When you say these other groups, you're just talking about SEMI and Thousand Oaks.
Yes.
Are there any other groups in the United States, California, they're taking similar actions like this?
We're soliciting other support through the US EPA lawsuit. So, and it's mainly focused on the toxicity.
Okay, secondly, this is over that same thing that we've fought for years. Did we have any success the last time we tried this?
We've appeals are, the last time the permit was issued was back in 2003.
Right.
And we were successful in avoiding having to apply reverse osmosis to our plant. So yes, in a way we were successful and in avoiding having to put unnecessary or expensive treatment at the end of the treatment plant. But now it's kind of a different set of problems that we're encountering.
Well, the one thing that I know is familiar with everyone here is that the nitrates, of course, they're in the water, which has to be treated from the delta water before we can put it in the stream to let the fishies hit it. We can drink it, but they can't. And that's what we faced for a long time, that same kind of philosophy. but we're still getting fined. And so if we didn't get that out last time, are we going to be successful in getting out this time when they're getting tougher?
They're getting tougher. I can't guarantee that we're going to be successful this time. All I can say is that the regulations are, as time evolves, they're getting tougher. Their limits are getting lower, and what we're trying to do is head them off at the pass before they're actually applied to the permits. So with that, it's kind of our last effort to try to preempt some of these tough regulations.
Don't get me wrong, I don't agree with what you're doing. I'm just saying we've been facing these things for a long time and haven't been, and that they keep making it stronger and stronger. That means we have to almost do reverse osmosis in some ways if this fails.
Right. So we're constantly fighting, not just on the wastewater side, we're fighting this on stormwater. It's the same type of regulations. We're fighting it in drinking water. And what we're trying to do is come up with technical reasons or do studies and gather the information and provide that information that we've gathered to prove that some of these tough regulations just don't make sense. They're not really being effective at protecting some of these beneficial uses. That what we're doing right now is we need to kind of play itself out and have it out there so that we can determine whether there is real effect to the environment.
One more, sorry. The reason I ask you about other agencies doing this and joining in, or us, bringing them in too, when does this thing have to be done? The reason I ask that question, we have CASA coming up. We are to start preaching, talking to the man about everyone getting on a board on this thing, make it a little stronger.
Yes, we're working on that, and everybody in the wastewater industry is very aware of these problems, and they're trying to help. Yeah.
We need that, though.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And if I could add, through the mayor, in response to Mr. Morgan's question, we're the first to go in our region. So it's difficult. That's why there's less. We've got the other two cities, and hopefully there'll be more because we are the first to go, and we do. We could use the financial support. The other thing I'd like to add with the process that's been going on for a number of permit processes over at least the last 15 years. If we do nothing, it's going to be more expensive. It's almost a given. They issue a draconian, unrealistic permit, and we have to sue and stay the permit implementation. The legal fees are much less than the penalties and fines that we would incur if we did nothing. Okay. And then we typically, in our settlement, and how it works out is it doesn't come off the permit length. We get that time starting when we settle. That's when the permit, the length of the permit starts.
With cities, I'm going to follow up with that a little bit, you don't mind? With cities like Oxnard, if you've been out to their sewer plant, has anyone here been out to Oxnard's sewer plant and behind it to see what goes out of that sewer plant? It's like a ditch. I think it's bubbling half the time. How
Your Honor,
we get away with that?
Your Honor,
Mr. Fox.
I maybe have a little more to help shed some light on this as well. And I'm not going to speak to
Sure.
what Oxnard does. There's really 2 points that are separate but connected. The point that's in front of you tonight is to do an MOU between the 3 agencies that have had worked together successfully before. But that's not occurring in a vacuum, so that's the second point, and that's where SCAP comes in. The wastewater industry is watching, and Mr. Fang pointed out, while we're the first to go, we're being hit with some new regulations that are clearly a concern to the industry that have impact with potentially very little benefit. And that means our ratepayers have to pay a lot of money for no benefit. So the industry is watching, and they're participating with us through SCAP. That's why that's part of the action. And that the SCAP will work through CASA and other mechanisms to try and have the industry help us through this effort. So we're not going it alone. However, the action before you tonight is for at least the 3 agencies directly affected to work together through an MOU. So that's one point I wanted to make. The other is, we're talking about fighting environmental regulation, and that can be misinterpreted. I want to point out we are very good stewards of the environment. example that was that Ms. McGovern referred to at the treatment plant, where they wanted us to build reverse osmosis, would have meant that our ratepayers would have had to pay $80 million to discharge clean water that's just as clean as it is today into the creek and provide no benefit to the creek, but our ratepayers would have to pay 2 or 3 times what they're currently paying. Instead, we turned that around and made it into a much more positive effort where, for only a fraction, for $20 million, we built some beneficial improvements at the plant that we can now turn into clean, recycled water that we can provide to our community so farmers and others can use it and have a cheaper water source. So we're actually improving the environment through that effort. So we found a cheaper way to do much better environmental assistance to the community than what the regulatory agencies were trying to impose on us. So we think we know better how to serve our community, and that's what we're just trying to accomplish here.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Any other questions? If not, we do. If you notice, there's 3 parts to this, so we have 3 separate motions.
I'll move to authorize the district manager to sign the memorandum of agreement.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, please vote. And that does pass 4 yes. Chairman Craven absent. The next motion?
I move to appropriate $40,000 to account number 871-3701-4, all this stuff, 437-32.32-05 for legal services and transfer of the district's MOA, we're here, costs, it says 20,000, share 20,000 from account number, those numbers are getting me, guys, 871-370-437.32.05 to Water Waste JPA Agency Fund Contributions account number 625-0000-364.72-31.
You picked the long one.
That was terrible. I should have
Is
done
there-
it.
That motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
No.
Please vote. And that does pass 4 yes, Chairman Craven absent. Who gets the nice one? Well, that's not the shortest, almost. Mr.
I'll make a motion as set forth on the agenda to authorize $20,000 to pay
Here, you want to trade?
payment to SCAP for the legal challenge.
You know, I left that open for him to do, and he didn't do it. So in the mood for, I shouldn't have.
Did I hear a second, Mr. Hildy? Yeah. We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that does pass 4 yes, Chairman Craven absent. Okay, that gets us through our departmental items. Do we have any comments from staff?
I don't have any unless Mr. Fox does.
Anything else? From board members?
We do have a CASA conference coming up in August, and so we won't have another will we? No, we won't have another meeting until then. I encourage everyone to go to that because we can pick up things like this. Maybe we can change some minds or whatever, but there's some other things too about water and seeing what other people are doing throughout the state and meeting their water needs and things. I encourage you to go.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, if not, we are recessed until 7:30, at which time we will have 1 public hearing.
Okay, I'd like to call the Camarillo Successor Agency meeting to order and let the record reflect that all members are present with the exception of Mrs. Craven. Amendments to this agenda?
No amendments?
No amendments to this agenda. Public comments? Any public comments for the Camarillo Successor Agency? Seeing no one come forward, we'll go down to item 3, which is a consent calendar.
Move the approval.
Second?
There's a motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes 4 yes and Mrs. Craven absent. Okay, that gets us down to the departmental. It's a resolution approving the refund of the Camarillo Community Development Commission bonds with possible issuance, sale, and delivery of a tax allocation refunding of the bond series 2014. It's a Camarillo corridor project. Mr. Campbell, do you have this one?
Yes, I have a
Thank
few
you.
comments on that one. Thank you. You've addressed the item before you, or mentioned the item before you, so in your capacity as a successor agency to the Camarillo Community Development Commission, let me walk you through these slides, which are really a summary of what was presented to you on July the 9th when we first discussed this idea of refunding the 2004 bonds. Recalled, we talked about the current structure of the bonds, that they're A1 rating, and then we talked most extensively about how the payments were made and then the outstanding amount that would be subject to refunding, as indicated, the $18.1 million on this slide. We also talked about the goal of refunding, taking advantage of the current interest rate environment, reducing the annual debt service, reducing the cash flow issues that currently exist, and then providing ultimately, through a refunding process, more RPTTF residual to be distributed to all of the affected taxing entities. On the 9th, we also talked about our expectations in regards to what the new refunded bonds would look like. And then most importantly, the item that you did on that night was you authorized us to move forward with a financing team. Financial advisors Kurt C.M. DeCrennis and Company, bond counsel is Marianne Goodkind, disclosure counsel Quentin Timming, and fiscal consultant serving on this project would be RSG or Rosneck Spevacek Group, and then an underwriter would be solicited using a RFP process. This slide again recalls, and it's been updated now to match information in your agenda report as the market continues to change as far as the bond market is concerned. The estimated savings now with the most recent scenario would be around $2.57 million or a net present value in excess of 6.5% of the current over the current structure of the bonds. The items that were attached to your agenda report, it describes the proposed refunding in great detail. There is the addition of a bond refunding financing plan, which is a report that is written by our financial advisor, Kurt DeCrennis, and he is here tonight if you have any particular questions on that document. The resolution would basically authorize the successor agency to authorize the issuance of the tax allocation refunding bonds, and then further direct us to prepare a preliminary and final official statement that would be used in the final issuance of the bonds. The reference materials that were provided for your review are forms of an indenture of trust, an escrow agreement, a bond purchase agreement, and then the continuing disclosure agreement that would underscore the 2014 bond issue. The dates that are still relevant to this process would be based off of the 9th approval of the consultants to assist us in the refunding process. We've now brought back for you the proposed resolution that would then, with your approval tonight, be submitted to the Oversight Board on tomorrow for their approval. And then all of the supporting documents that I just mentioned on the previous slide would then subsequently be sent to the State Department of Finance, in that any action of the Oversight Board is subject to final approval and review by the State Department of Finance. If the State Department of Finance were then to notify us within 5 days of their intent to review, they would have an additional 60 days to review the resolution and provide final approval. Saying that they would provide final approval later in the process, that would be November the 16th. The next item that would come back before you would be on September the 10th, and that would be where we have a preliminary official statement that would then be in preparation of the final issuance of this bond. And then the December bond closing date would stay, as mentioned, on July the 9th as well. With that, that will conclude my comments. Again, Kurt DeCrennis, our financial advisor, part of the financing team, as well as Marianne Goodkind is here. If you have any particular questions on any of the attached documents that were provided as a part of the agenda packet.
Questions, Mr. Little?
Yes. We had talked at the last meeting about having this bond closing hopefully in sometime in mid-October, but apparently that's not possible. Is that what's occurred?
This provides the worst-case scenario if the state were to take the entire 60 days to approve the refunding process.
So
if their approval comes back sooner, then that might expedite us a little bit more in the bond closing.
So it will, if we can get them to approve it sooner, it'll be here sooner.
Correct.
Okay.
Questions?
Just have one
Mrs.
second.
McDonald?
Any change as far as the idea or the hope that all the costs incurred to refinance would be paid through or approved by the state to be paid?
Verbiage to that effect is included in the resolution. It does say if we get into this process and we're not able to achieve the desired
I know that's what we're saying. What's the state saying? They're still okay with it?
in their review of the resolution, well, it's knowledge, we have knowledge that they've approved similar resolutions with that verbiage contained in it. So
Okay.
then the thought is the Oversight Board approving it and Department of Finance approving it, then they're all acknowledging that they agree with the language in that resolution.
So we do have this on the agenda tomorrow for the Oversight Board as well.
Yes,
so
we do.
That will be moving it along. Can't get much closer than 24 hours, less than 24 hours. That's my only question.
Any
Just
other
have
questions?
a comment when you're ready.
One other question, Ronnie. What is the interest rate potentially that we would get on this? Did you say that? I believe it's less than what we have now. Is that right?
Total interest cost would be about 3.7%, and that's about 1% less than what
A
we
percent
presently
less.
have. Yes,
And the
based
overall
on current
savings could
bond
be up to
conditions.
a couple million, 2.5 million.
It would save about
after-
1.18 million or 1.18 million net present value savings, or 6%.
Okay.
And remember, we discussed the threshold when you consider refunding is usually around 3%. If you achieve 3% or greater net present value, then that represents an opportunity where you might want to begin the process.
Yeah, right. I remember that conversation. Okay, any other questions? All right, comments?
I just
or
have a
we can-
comment.
Here,
I-
Mrs.
yeah.
McDonald?
While this won't generate a lot of revenue or, I guess, savings for the city, it obviously is a great help to some of our agencies who get the pass-through from property taxes, so particularly the school districts. So I think it's a good thing to do, and the game's changed a little bit since the last time we refunded bonds, but having the state involved in it, but it's a good thing.
Ms. Little,
Ready for, make a motion if,
please
okay.
proceed.
Second.
I'll move to adopt a resolution authorizing issuance of tax allocation revenue fund bonds and approving all the related documents as set forth in the agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes 4-0 with one absent. Okay. That gets us down to comments from the staff?
I don't have any comments. Comments? Okay.
Comments from the board members? Any comments? Okay, we do have one closed session. Counselor, would it be appropriate to announce it at this point?
Yeah, we could do that. It's a conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, be the initiation of litigation pursuant to paragraph 4, subdivision D of Government Code, section 54956.9. The number of cases is 1.
Okay, so with that, we're in recess. Okay, with that, I'm going to please call the regular Camarillo City Council meeting for July 23rd to order, please, and let the record reflect that all council members are present with the exception of one. Okay, amendments to this agenda?
No amendments?
No amendments?
Your Honor, I do have one request.
Mrs. McDonald?
I would request that we pull item E from the consent calendar, and that would end up in community development.
Hang on, let me find community development.
You know, that was
That's
the
gonna
same
be
one I wanted
item
to pull.
E, is that right?
Yes.
Correct.
I want to pull to E also, so it's pulled.
Okay, so that's item E, and that will be on the community development part of the agenda. Is there anything else? I have one just request. We do have members of the public for the Harrison. Would it be appropriate to maybe flip those? Do that first and then go back to item 4, which is an invocation on that?
That'd be fine.
Is that all right with the council? Yeah. So we were going to do that then. Okay, we don't have any presentations, so that does get us down to the consent calendar.
I
Move the
move
appro-
the approval, that's item E.
Second.
There's a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. That passes 4-0 with one absence. Okay, that is going to get us down to item 9A. It is a resolution authorizing the franchise agreement with E.J. Harrison and Son Solid Waste Handling Service. Do we have a staff report on that? Mr. Feng, are you going to?
Yes, I've got a couple real brief opening comments, and then Mr. Pichardo, as he makes his way to the podium, will give you the majority of the presentation. This item is a proposed solid waste recycling and green waste agreement with E.J. Harrison and Sons Incorporated. It includes several significant additional services and programs compared to the existing agreement and continued safeguards against potential rate increases in the future. In exchange, E.J. Harrison and Sons Incorporated would receive a 10-year operating agreement with 3 5-year options. City staff and E.J. Harrison staff have reached consensus on all of the proposed the agreement, all the provisions in the agreement. And unless there are any council comments or questions at this time, Mr. Pichardo will present the essence of the proposed agreement.
Your Honor, can I ask one quick
Yes, Mrs.
question?
McDonald had a question first.
And I did clarify this with the city manager earlier, but I think we need to say it just so everybody else hears it. When we talk about city facilities, it does indeed include City Hall,
It does
That's
mean City Hall is included.
because it says includes and it specifically leaves it out, so.
I
Is that
think that was
true?
an oversight. It does include City
So
Hall.
that's universal throughout the whole thing? City
Yes.
Hall is okay.
Yes, thank you. Good
Ye-
point.
Yes, the trash cans from after our Arts Council stuff will be dumped.
Well, it says includes and City Hall's not there, so I just want to make sure. Okay.
Anything else, Mrs.?
Oh, that was just my one quick, yeah.
Any other questions here? I have a question about the potential of the food waste diversion program. And my question is, Roger, apparently they've identified some 13 potential. My first part of the question is are those restaurants, are those other food service organizations, perhaps like a grocery store, if you will? And is that a hard number, the 13, or could that be expanded if the program is deemed successful?
As of now, there are 13 establishments. They're combined grocery stores and restaurants. And the idea is so far it's been in operation, the pilot program, for about 1.5 to 2 years. It's been successful up to this point, and looking to also bring in more restaurants into the program in the coming months. But as of now, there are 13, and they're combined grocery stores and restaurants.
Mm-hmm. And Roger, the logistics of this, is that a separate bin that they're going to put this in and come and pick it up on a separate day, or will it be picked up the same day that they have their trash service, or how do they actually collect this?
The arrangements are made with the solid waste collector, which is Harrison, and the system, the pilot program that's in place right now, consists of, I believe it's 32-gallon carts, and if the restaurant or grocery store requires more, then additional carts will be provided, and the service is depending on how much waste, not yard waste, but food waste is being generated. Service could be daily or every other, it just depends on the amount of food waste that's being generated. Because we also want to prevent any rodents from,
Yes.
Also, this is my last, I don't mean to beat this, Roger, but it's a couple other, just one other question. What do they do with this? In other words, how is this particular matter disposed of?
The waste is currently being disposed of at their Limonera facility in Santa Paula, and it's actually mixed with the yard waste, and it's used as I believe, another source so that it's not landfilled.
Right.
Source of energy.
Kevin, go ahead, Kevin. Bill.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. Just looking at these key provisions of the agreement, of the new agreement, it talks about that the rates will be based upon, or any increase will be based upon 80% of the CPI.
Correct.
What CPI are we using? Are we using the Ventura County, Santa Barbara?
Los Angeles Consumer Price Index, Los Angeles County.
Why don't we use the one that sub-metro CPI that we have here for other purposes?
Skag.
Is that possible?
It's been a long-term habit, practice.
Well, it seems like it's what our costs are in this Central Coast is much more relevant than what happens in LA. Also have a question with regard to the fact that, as I understand it, the street sweeping company, Venco, which is a part of the Harrison organization, we will no longer have a separate contract with them, but we will contract through the Harrison directly for that service.
Correct. And just to be clear, Venco and Harrison are two separate entities.
I understand, but they're owned by the same.
Right.
Okay, all right. And finally, they will continue to, I think we talked about it, that I think Councilmember McDonald brought up the fact there wasn't a city hall listed in the facilities served, but that is going to happen. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Should we hear his presentation?
It's, I was going to ask the same thing because I got questions for them. If they're going to make a presentation.
Sure. Any other questions at this time? Should we do, Roger, do you have a presentation you'd
Sure.
like to do?
Yes.
Sure.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. This evening, I will provide you with a PowerPoint presentation regarding a proposal for a new solid waste franchise agreement. Before I proceed, I want to acknowledge our negotiating team, the Utility Committee, City Manager Bruce Fang, and our Assistant City Attorney Don Davis. Also want to thank Mr. Jim Harrison and his team for being very professional and forthright throughout the process.
If
City
you could
managers-
really, Roger, if you want to really get a little closer to the microphone, I appreciate it. Thank you.
The City Manager's Office is responsible for the administration of the solid waste franchise agreement. The Utility Committee met 3 times, reviewed and considered a number of additional provisions, and provided input to staff before staff initiated discussions with Harrison. Through the course of these meetings, the Utility Committee, along with staff, reviewed the term of the agreement, the franchise fee, a franchise fee survey, the residential and commercial rate structure, a rate adjustment calculation, the feasibility of adding street sweeping service to the solid waste franchise agreement, maintaining the existing rates through this fiscal year, adding additional services and programs, and consolidating the residential and commercial agreements into one franchise agreement. I'd also like to note that under the California Public Resources Code, Section 40059, subsection A2, cities are granted the authority to award exclusive franchise agreements for solid waste collection services without competitive bidding. Camarillo implemented the act respectively under the Camarillo Municipal Code, Chapter 9.04 of Title 9 and sections, and 2 different sections, 9.04, 150, and 9.04.160. As I mentioned, the solid waste manager is responsible for the administration of the solid waste franchise agreement, including recycling, green waste, and the household hazardous waste program. In 1989, the legislature passed AB 939, which created waste diversion mandates for all cities throughout the state. It established a permitting and enforcement mechanism and authorized local jurisdictions to impose fees to establish, implement, and administer solid waste programs. The main purpose of AB 939 is to reduce the amount of solid waste that is disposed of in landfills. Additionally, in 2011, the legislature passed Assembly Bill 341. This is a mandatory commercial recycling law, which requires all businesses that generate 4 or more cubic yards of waste weekly to implement recycling programs. Harrison currently provides solid waste handling services to the city under 2 agreements, a residential and a commercial franchise agreement. Staff met with the Utility Committee initially to review various additional provisions for the committee to consider as part of a new solid waste franchise agreement. Staff received input from the committee and then initiated discussions with Harrison regarding the term and conditions of this proposed agreement. Over the course of several meetings, staff and Harrison successfully negotiated a proposed franchise agreement which would continue the existing residential and commercial solid waste programs. The agreement also provides for a long term in exchange for additional programs and services at no additional cost to the city or customers. The existing residential and commercial agreements are bifurcated and will expire on June 30th, 2015. The proposed agreement would consolidate the agreements into one franchise agreement, has a term of 10 years, and would expire in 2024 unless it is extended. The agreement includes up to 3 discretionary extensions of the franchise, each for a period of 5 years, if the city is satisfied with the contractor's level of service and rates. The first 5-year option is limited to whether the contractor is in compliance with all terms and conditions of the agreement. The second and third extensions are at the council's sole discretion. By that, I mean that the city would be free to negotiate amended terms and conditions with Harrison or to seek proposals from other potential contractors. Franchise fees are imposed on Harrison to compensate for wear, tear, and damage to city streets, sidewalks, curbs, and gutters, and other infrastructure resulting from the exercise of the franchise, along with other related expenses. The existing 5% franchise fee will be adjusted to 6% if the agreement is approved, which would result in additional revenues to the city. Staff surveyed all cities in Ventura County that collect franchise fees. The survey revealed that Camarillo's current fee is lower than the average 6%. The proposed agreement changes the method by which future residential rates will be adjusted. The setting of the residential rates will be approved administratively, which is similar to the city's current practice with respect to the commercial rates. Notice will be sent in advance with the utility bill. So the existing residential rate structure includes the following components: a franchise fee of $1.35, an AB 939 fee, a household hazardous waste fee for the household hazardous waste program, a landfill fee, and the operations portion, which is $18.07. The sum of that gives us the standard service rate of $27.06. With the franchise fee being increased to 6%, that would increase by 27 cents. The good thing is that the rate does not increase. It remains unchanged. The commercial rate structure essentially is structured the same way as a residential. And again, there would be no change to the rates, assuming that there is no inflation. I would get into the CPI adjustment formula, and this is an illustration year over year. And the existing CPI methodology will remain unchanged. However, the CPI cap by which the rate can increase has been reduced from 5% to 4%, which is a good thing for the city. Each CPI adjustment will be calculated by computing the percentage upwards change, if any, in the CPI index for the 12-month annual average period ending in February of each year, and multiplying the applicable amount to the escalated by 80% of that percentage upwards change in the CPI. So if I could walk you through this, what we do is we take the current year CPI and the previous year CPI and subtract line 1 from 2. That gives us a 3.2% increase. So then we divide that 3.2 by the previous year CPI, which is 221.4. That yields a 1.44%, and then the contractor receives 80% of that 1.4%, which is equivalent to a little bit over 1%. And that 1.16 increase is then applied to the operations portion of the operations, which is equivalent to about 21 cents. So the overall rate increase would be, in this scenario, 21 cents. And, you know, when you divide the rate increase by the current rate, it's actually less than 1%. So it's a really good formula, and it is capped, so it cannot exceed 4%. And keep in mind that the current cap is 5%. So I wanted to point that out because that is very important. Okay. The agreement also provides a guaranteed rate, which actually the agreement includes a competitive rate guarantee to prevent rates from exceeding the average rate for similar service in 5 of the largest cities in Ventura County. Camarillo's rates include free recycling service for multifamily units and businesses. So here what we have, we did do a survey of the 5 largest cities, and the comparable rate was, the average rate was $27.81, and our existing rate is below that. So we do have a competitive rate. On the commercial sector, a service 1 time a week, our current rate is $182.21, and the average comparable rate is $210.37. So we do have some competitive rates here in Camarillo, and it's important that, you know, we announce that. Now, moving on to street sweeping. The existing solid waste franchise agreement does not include street sweeping as part of the service being provided by Harrison. The city contracts separately for this service through Venco. The city currently pays 100% of the costs. Because there is a natural synergy between solid waste management and street sweeping, the proposed agreement adds street sweeping into the solid waste franchise agreement, and the city will pay 50% of the monthly charge for services to Harrison. Harrison intends to subcontract with Venco for such services, so there will be no lapse in service or changes to the existing street sweeping specifications. The monthly charge for street sweeping service will be subject to a similar annual CPI adjustment as the solid waste rates, and that would be effective July 1st, 2015. Also want to point out that the existing CPI formula that is used for the street sweeping contract is actually 100% of the CPI. With this agreement, it would be 80% of the CPI, so we would realize some additional cost savings there as well. And there's a cap on that as well, the 4%. One little bit into the street sweeping specifications. Depicted here are the existing specs for street sweeping, which I mentioned will remain unchanged. And I wanted to point out that Venco currently removes about 780 tons of debris annually from city streets. About 95% of that debris is delivered to a composting facility where it is used for agricultural purposes, and actually some of that material is brought back here and we use it on our medians. Composting our street debris is another way to help the city achieve AB 939 compliance. So right now, the state mandate is 50% diversion. The city's existing diversion rate is 74%, so we're well above that. This will only help us more. Additionally, street sweeping helps prevent trash from polluting waterways, as streets will be swept the day after Harrison collects the trash. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone there. You're helping meet, the AB 939 requirements, as well as stormwater regulations that are in place. Under the current agreement, the city pays Harrison for solid waste collection services for all of these facilities here. Currently, the courtyard, the police station, the old courthouse, the new library, the sani plant, and apologize for leaving out the city hall. And the proposed solid waste agreement would provide for those services at no cost to the city. So we would realize some additional savings there as well.
I can't see negatives.
And on top of all that, we also we would add some additional services and programs. For example, the bulky items, residents would receive 2 per calendar year. In addition, a resident may substitute 1 item for 1 collection. So if, you might have some individuals that don't use their bulky items, they can exchange it for 1 collection of solid waste. So if you might have a large party once a year, you can call Harrison in exchange and have them pick up your trash instead. Harrison will provide e-waste collection at their facility in Ventura, Gold Coast, and that would be unlimited e-waste. So residents can bring their electronic waste to that facility, and there would be no limit and no cost to the city or customers. The city has a household battery collection program right now that staff actually administers. We have staff that collects the batteries from 3 different locations, the senior center, the library, and city hall, and staff transports those batteries to Gold Coast. Well, staff will not have that responsibility anymore. We will work with Harrison and their staff to provide those rounds. The compost bin and motor oil receptacles and funnels. The compost bins, the city, essentially what Harrison's going to do here is warehouse the compost bins, and they will also deliver the compost bins. So if a resident orders a compost bin, then Harrison would deliver it to their house. The city buys the compost bin and sells them at wholesale price. So they would be storing the compost bins for us. Same concept with the motor oil receptacles and funnels. The difference between the two is that the motor oil receptacles and funnels are purchased based on the amount of grant funds, oil grant funds that we receive on an annual basis. So, that could come and go. You might have it 1 year, following year you may not have it. Christmas tree collection, they will provide Christmas tree collection for 2 weeks following Christmas, so through the second week of January. And they will provide some write-ups for the City Scene newsletter, announcing programs and services. And, we talked a little bit about the food waste feasibility study that is ongoing. And I believe on an annual basis, they've been collecting about 200 tons. They started the program, and I believe Councilmember Craven was present at Albertsons about 2 years ago. And that so far that's been very successful. And if all works out well, it would be, we're hoping that it could be expanded into the residential, but that's unknown at this time. Harrison has agreed to provide mulch to the city upon request. And Harrison has agreed to provide solid waste collection services as well as the containers for a number of city-sponsored events. So in summary, with input from the Utility Committee staff and Harrison successfully reached consensus on the proposed agreement, which will provide the city with additional programs and services, additional revenues, cost savings, and assures that the city's residential and commercial solid waste rates will not exceed the average of survey cities, and assures that the city's rate is capped. Additionally, the agreement assures that the city will remain in compliance with the California Integrated Waste Management Act, which requires cities to reduce by 50% the amount of material that is deposited in landfills. I also want to take this opportunity to thank our Camarillo residents and businesses for their recycling efforts. It is because of their efforts that the city's diversion rate is an impressive 74%, which is much higher than the statewide average of 65%. So it's because of them that we're at that level. Based on the long history of providing contract solid waste handling services within the city, Harrison has demonstrated experience, responsibility, qualifications, consistent and reliable service throughout the city for many years. I believe it's over 40 years. And so they may be afforded the opportunity to continue to provide solid waste handling services to the city. For these reasons, staff is recommending the City Council approve the suggested action to execute a franchise agreement with E.J. Harrison and Sons. This concludes staff's report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, are there any questions from Roger at this particular point? Mr. Morgan, did you have a question?
And some of this could be, probably someone from Harrison should be up there for a couple of questions so they can answer some of it. But I like the waste recycling, the, what do you call it, the food recycling thing. But it's not only used for, I think, your mulch or other things of that nature, but you're also using that for energy. That's why I need somebody up here to answer these questions. Anybody from Harrison want to come up? I think you've got a good program on the food recycling, and there's a lot more potential because you're missing butcher shops and others who have high quality waste for you. And I think that you might want to explain to the council what you're doing with the food waste.
Well, food waste is different than ordinary green waste in that it takes a different permit. So to answer Kevin's question, we have a limited capacity right now to handle food waste because you have emission problems and you have odor problems.
Right.
So we have a limited capacity. We're in the process of expanding that right now. I think food waste has to be handled different. It's a lot more regulated than regular green waste. The idea is to successfully do it, again, without odors, without emission. And that's the challenge, to be able to do that. And it's an experimental thing. I think it's, we know how to do it, but we're trying to keep the cost down.
Are you going to be using some of that for power, energy producing type stuff?
We hope so.
There's another key behind this because I know food waste is going to be used for that.
We hope that we can produce power.
I'm hoping you're lucky to do that. I appreciate that. That's what I needed to know so everyone knew there's more to that food waste than just throwing it into making mulch out of it. Doesn't happen. You got some other potentials.
The ultimate would be power. Power your trucks with food waste.
You bet.
That would be ideal.
Thanks.
Anything else? Is that it?
No.
Any other questions from anybody? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't have any blue cards. Would anybody else from the applicant like to add anything that hasn't already been added to the to what's been discussed so far? Okay, so with that, I'll open it up to any council questions, comments, or considerations at this point.
I don't have questions, but I have comments.
Okay. Would you like to proceed then?
Sure. First of all, I'd like to explain that I was late because I was at a meeting to which you sent me. The Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency had a public hearing, and I was chairing the meeting, and it was a very important meeting for 7 farmers, so I had to stay through until a decision was made. At any rate, I do believe I got here pretty much at the beginning of this, and I heard the presentation. I read what's in the packet. I was also on the Utilities Committee. I've been on the Utilities Committee since I got here and have been through a couple of other franchises. I have to tell you, in all the years, we've had very, very few complaints about Harrison's service to the city. And recently, I've had no complaints. I don't know about the rest of you, but I think that our residents are happy with the service they provide us. They do a good job. We've gotten used to, they have helped us get to an exceptionally high level of recycling, and most cities don't have that level. I can remember when we first started the recycling program, and all of us, the council members at the time, Mr. Little as city manager, the Harrisons and their employees were all out delivering blue bins and knocking door by door, explaining to people how to use them and what to put in, what not to put in. And at that time, I thought that was exceptional, and I still think that the service they're providing to us is excellent. And I appreciate all of the good work for recycling. I got to tell you about something I saw not too long ago. I was driving home in the morning with my grandson, and so about 7:45 we turned onto Via Tomas, and it was on a Thursday because Thursday's trash day, and that's a very important day in our house. We have to watch the trash trucks and the recycle trucks and the green waste trucks. But the trash trucks come down our street first, and he'd already been to our house, so we were on Via Tomas. And he picked I happened to notice as I pulled on the street, and after I noticed the truck, I noticed that this one house had a lot of trash, and it was not just stacked up, but it was all over the place. And I thought, oh, I bet that's going to fall all over the place. And it did. As the arms reached out and lifted up, trash went all over, and it got on the ground. And so I kind of stopped, and we were going to watch from our car that day. And the driver got out. He picked up the stuff, put it in the green bucket or the green bin, and I thought that he'd then put it up, but he didn't. He stopped. He turned around, went back to his truck. He got a broom and a dustpan. He swept everything up, put it in the bin, and then he picked it up. And I thought that was really something. I really did. He had no idea who I was who stopped there watching him, or thought that I had any idea why I was watching him. But I just thought that was excellent. They have always been cooperative, and they have responded whenever we've had a problem, whenever we've called or asked. I believe that Harrison is a top-notch trash collector. And I got to tell you, in all the years I've worked here, in the 18 years I was on the VRSD board, which operates the landfill, and that was when we were dealing with opening new landfills and closing landfills. It was when we were starting recycling programs. I learned that trash is a pretty dirty business, and I think that Harrison is a very, very respectable, one of the most respectable companies. And I can support, I can support this agreement with them.
Okay. Any other comments at this point? Mrs. McDonald, do you have one?
I have two questions. The length of the prior contract, and I know we've extended it a few times, but what was the original length of the contract?
It was 10 years.
10 years as well, okay. And the other one, and just to reconcile this in my own mind, I noticed that our franchise fee, we're increasing it from 5% to 6% because we were low. I noticed that some of the other cities are already at 8%. So we're locking it in to 6% for 10 years. After the 10 years, then we can talk about an increase?
If I'm not mistaken, the agreement can be revisited at any time. But, yeah, the way it's structured now would be for 10 years. And then at that point in time, we could renegotiate. I also wanted to point out that some of the other cities are also looking to increase the franchise fees.
From 8%? They're going to go higher than that?
Yeah, they're going to go to 9. So,
But, and that's something that could be revisited before the 10-year period or not until after 10 years?
Evening, Mayor and council members. Don Davis, Assistant City Attorney. Technically, the terms are locked in for 10 years. So certainly, we can propose things to them, but they don't have to agree to any adjustment for the 10-year period. In fact, frankly, it's potentially 15 years.
So that first 5-year extension?
Because the first 5-year extension is a compliance one, but there might be things that we find non-compliant, so that could open the door for negotiations at that time.
That probably wouldn't be franchise fees, huh? Okay. Okay. So then in reconciling this in my own mind, why we would agree to being lower, particularly when we're lower than some of the big cities right now, locking it in for 15 years, is it because of all of the other things they've added, giving us, therefore the cost saving is going to offset that potential increase in franchise fees? Is that a
Yes.
thought that went through?
Yes, even though we're lower in this particular category of franchise fees, the offsets that we gain in the other areas collectively is significant. I think it's a fair trade.
So that it would,
Yes.
an offset of the two, okay. That was the only thing that stood out in my mind, that we didn't quite make out as well as other people, but then and of course I don't know what the other contracts are for the other cities, but we obviously are seeing an increase in the benefit that we're getting, so.
We are.
And not seeing that analysis, you feel very comfortable that we are indeed we always want to be the winner, right?
Yes.
Anything else?
And Harrison's, you want them to be a winner.
Well, we want them to be a winner, but obviously we're here representing the city, so, okay.
Mr. Little?
A couple of things. First of all, a follow-up to Councilmember McDonald. There's going to be a significant savings from what I gather from this, just on this savings on street sweeping, cost of disposals.
You know me, I always need to analyze
Yeah,
it so it all
well,
works out.
I just two things. I'm very impressed with both the way this has been presented and the benefits that are going to accrue to the citizens of the city. Having been someone who had associated with solid waste disposal and trash collection over many years, having even run municipal operations, which nobody ought to ever do that, that Harrison is by far head and shoulders of any refuse collection firm I've ever had the pleasure of dealing with, either as a city manager or as a user of their services. They're excellent. So I have no problem at all of approving this revised franchise.
Anything else, Mr. Morgan?
Yes. I've been here 34 years watching Harrison move along, and throughout those years, they've been fantastic with us. Looking at a lot of cities, I think we negotiate well. I don't know how they negotiated, who negotiated his contract with them, but it was fantastic because we're getting a lot of positives out of this. I don't see negatives in this contract at all. And I think we did a good job, and I think Harrison's done a good job by us. The reason I ask about the food waste and other things is Harrison also is going into all different directions in trying to create something usable for the community, be that energy related or be that making sludge and other things that makes things grow. And so they've been one of the most advanced groups. Others have come in and tried to take waste management at one point. I don't know if you were here, Charlotte, but came in and tried to make a little bit at it, but there's no way. And so I've been proud to have Harrison as our representatives, and great contract.
Well, I always come from, I think, the point of view of our ratepayers. And we're all up here and we're all ratepayers here. And I always look at a contract, not necessarily what it's going to do now, but what it's going to do in the future. And I think this does give a lot of benefit to our ratepayers in the future. There's a lot of added benefits to this contract. We all know the service that's provided. They do have a long track record here in the city, and it's been exemplary. So with that, I will entertain any motion.
I move
or
to-
just a second, Charlotte.
Actually, I'm sorry if I could interrupt. Just very quickly, Mr. Little had a question on the index that we used with LA. Mr. Pernick went and checked, and without getting into too much detail, there's essentially 6 indexes used throughout the state of California. And if you don't have one in your immediate area, which we do not, you use the closest one, and it's LA.
All right.
So we use the LA one, and while I have the moment, we use the LA index for other COLA increases on our other items as well in
Thank
the
you.
organization. Thank you.
Ms. Craven?
I move to approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a solid waste franchise agreement with Harrison.
Second.
There's a motion, second. Into further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Okay, we're past the witching hour at 6:15. Counselor, do we need to announce any closed session items at this particular point?
I don't believe we're going to have time to get to them, but I could announce them if you want.
Do we want to wait till we come back and announce them?
I think so. The study session is going to take the full time.
Very good. Okay, so with that, we were going to be in a recess for a study session. All right, I'd like to reconvene the city council to order, please, and let the record reflect that all council members are present at this time. And Mr. Little, how about the flag salute, please?
Please repeat after me. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, we do not have any presentations or public safety. We're going to get down to public comments. I do have some public comment sheets. I want to make sure the microphone is on at the podium, and it is. First one is Anthony Stepp. Is Anthony here tonight? There's Anthony. If you could really speak into that microphone, Anthony, I'd really appreciate it.
3 minutes.
Hi.
Thank you.
I'm Anthony. I received a letter in the mail that I cannot have a miniature potbelly pig. He's 45 pounds, probably about 12 inches tall at most, about the size of a little English bulldog, a little bit thinner and stuff. And I was told I cannot have him due to my area and how big my property is and stuff, and a zoning issue. But I can have 2 big Great Danes and stuff. But I was told no matter what, it's a livestock animal. It's not considered like a domestic animal, like Ventura or City of Ventura says a Vietnamese potbelly pig is a domestic animal. But City of Camarillo says no matter what kind of pig it is, it's a farm animal. It's considered swine. And I was wondering if there's any way I could change, or we can think about changing it to where I can keep the pig. He is in a home right now. And so, sorry. I mean, the pig does walks for fundraisers like Cystic Fibrosis Walk and helps raise money for a cure for cystic fibrosis. He goes on car rides. He loves walking. He walks on a leash. I treat him like a dog. He follows the rules of a dog and stuff. But no matter what, City of Camarillo considers him livestock, and I can't have him apparently. So I was just hoping that there's some way we could think about changing it. Because he's his full size. He's 45 pounds about, and he's 18 inches long, by under 12 feet tall. And I was told I can't have him because of the space issue. So, I mean, he's no bigger than my dog I have now, but I can have 2 Great Danes and no one's going to say anything with the space issue. But even that, that's really it. I mean, I have pictures of him. He sees Santa Claus. He's smaller than a garden lamp. I mean, he goes on car rides. He's not that much bigger than a tennis ball, but he's livestock, apparently. He's not going to be eaten ever. He lives 20 years, and he sleeps in bed with me. He's my best friend. But I can't have him.
Have you been in contact with the staff on this yet?
The who?
Staff members, have you been in contact with them?
I've talked to I've talked to Code and Conduct, I've talked to Bruce Fang's assistant, and I've talked to Scott something, he's a manager of he's one of the managers, I guess. And I've been led on a wild goose chase. I've not got a clear answer. My case manager was on vacation. I had no one to talk to.
Okay. Is there any, staff, do you have any comments or anything that we have on this? I believe a number of years
Been
ago.
about 10,
didn't we
12,
have-
15 years ago that
Yeah.
I think Mr. Ghost was still here when we did potbelly pig
Yeah.
discussions.
Good.
Council, our zoning ordinance is very clear that for residential property zoned RPD 8 and greater, that no farm animals, miniature pot-bellied pigs, or pigeons are permitted. In order for Mr. Stepp to have his potbelly pig in this location, it would require a text amendment.
I'm sorry, what?
It would require a text amendment to the zoning code.
So this is a condominium and apartment area where?
Where is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I know that there's these smaller type, I guess they're
He's
pigs I've
from
seen.
here
What do
to
they
here.
call them again?
He's a Vietnamese potbelly pig mixed
Yeah.
with a Giuliani, so he will be smaller than a Vietnamese potbelly pig. But he's from arm to arm. I hold him in my arms. He's 45 pounds.
Is he full grown?
Yeah.
He's full grown. And how old is he?
He's not even a year yet.
Not even a year, but he's full grown?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we can't make any decisions here.
No,
but
I was
he's
just
asked
curious as
us
to-
how to go about asking us if we would consider changing the code.
I mean, he goes sees Santa Claus. He's not livestock to me. He's my best friend. He's better than my dog. I like him more than the dog that we have.
Counsel, the reason why code enforcement was involved in this case is because we had received a complaint about the pig for noise and odor. And it was the next door neighbor who adjoins this property. And that's why we don't allow livestock animals in highly dense zones, is for these reasons. There's not adequate area or backyard, for an animal such as this.
Could I ask?
Can I?
Yeah, we have another question, Mr.
Just
Little.
a question. If it was in a RE, RE 30 zone or RE 6,000, could they have it?
In an RE zone, yes.
How about a single-family residence, just regular?
I'd have to research that some more.
And it is, or I just lost my, sorry. But I mean, he is, or the reason I got a mini pig too, I even actually considered getting a full-grown pig, just because it was one of those things when I was looking at pigs, I wanted a pig. And I got a mini pig because I knew my backyard was not big for a full-grown 300-pound pig. I got a pig who, when full-grown, he will be 45 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
He's very small. He's about smaller than my dog.
Does he make more noise than a dog would?
My dog makes more noise than him. My dog's up till 2 in the morning barking, and no one has a problem with that. But a pig that squeals to probably about 8 o'clock at night, and then we let him in the house, and he comes upstairs and sleeps in my bed and cuddles next to my leg and wakes me up in the morning, goes downstairs, lets himself out, and goes to the bathroom and waits to be fed. I mean, the dog makes more noise throughout the night. The dog barks if a car drives by. The pig sits there and just goes, eh, and then he falls back asleep. And the dog poop smells worse than pig poop. Pigs eat grass. Dogs eat meat.
Your Honor, can we ask one of our staff, could we report back from code enforcement? Because there's maybe some things we don't know about, that's the complaint and what it says and all that. At least a written something.
We can make that information available.
I'd like that so we can see more about what there can be done, if there's anything to be done.
Yeah,
But we can't do anything tonight.
So, no,
We can only
nothing.
hear your request.
Can a pig of this size be a service animal?
I asked I said hypothetically, if he was registered as a emotional support animal and stuff, if I could keep him, and they said, and my answer was a service animal, which service animal is dog for deaf and blind people. They serve a purpose. An emotional support, or they serve a physical purpose. An emotional support animal is all mental purpose. And they said, no matter what, he has to be gone.
Maybe I'd ask staff that maybe when you're looking into it, to see if there's something there that would allow that
And they say
a support
pigs
animal versus, having livestock. I have no idea, but that
And they
might be
said
something to look
pig
at.
cannot be registered as a emotional support animal because it is a pig. But if you go to register him, one of the options is pigs.
I'd like to hear the report. Come back to us and write
Could
it.
staff also get back to us where it may be permissible to have an animal like this? Mr. Little, did you have another question?
No, I agree with what's been said.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we've got Matt Lorimer. Here's Matt.
Good evening. I have a couple comments tonight. I came here about 2 weeks ago with pictures with businesses with excessive watering. That's still continuing today. Let me remind you that we've been in a drought for 3 years. The governor in January called for a 20% reduction, and according to the state, so far we've only met at 5%. Something really needs to be focused in on here. You know, we're not looking to fine everybody, but again, it was in January. You guys took it up in July. That's halfway through the year. And then you said, well, you'll do something about it in August. You know, it has to be addressed. Because you know something, after the next year, you're going to vote on water rates. The taxpayers are going to look and say, what have you been doing to solve the problem? Putting banners across the freeway, I ask people, be wise. People look at that. That's not a solution. Or also you put in the your monthly flyer that they should replace AstroTurf. That is very expensive. That is not the sole solution. Again, I asked the city council to start moving ahead. It's already been halfway through the year. The next issue I want to bring up, the last city council meeting, Terry Bray came aboard here and said that a city councilman had approached her twice. You know, my name is Matt Lorimer. I represent the Lamplighter Mobile Home Association. You know, we came here because we have an owner that's raised the rent from $735 to $1,029, continues to grow. We came for a fair hearing. We expected it. What we didn't expect is the fact is, when I heard Terry last week, that a councilman approached her twice and was saying it's never going to happen. Jan McDonald wasn't on board. It's somehow that we were fooled or actually being played fools of. I don't appreciate that. You guys you are acting councilmen. I want an investigation on what occurred. Jan, you're always calling for the right thing to do. I think this is highly disrespectful for the residents of the park that a councilman was going around saying that rent control wouldn't be passed. You have no, give it up. I mean, that's a form of intimidation, harassment. You call it what you want. It's disrespectful, and I expect an investigation. I expect the city manager to send me a letter. The city attorney, I want a letter. I want an investigation of the conduct. I don't appreciate it. I don't know who's involved on this council, but I expect better. You know, when I come here as a citizen and we bring an issue here, the last thing I want to hear is from another entity that somehow somebody's going to them saying it's never going to happen, we've already decided. That's totally disrespectful to me, my residents, and I don't appreciate it, and it needs to be investigated. And my committee is on board with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Your Honor?
Yes, Mrs.
Matt, can you please clarify something? Because people got confused last time, too, because you use my name and you don't use anyone else's name. Can you please clarify that I was not the one that made that statement?
Well,
somebody else said I did it or something?
Yeah, somebody else said that, Jan. You're right. I'm not saying, I'm not saying
That's all I want you to do is just clarify it wasn't me.
No. It was brought to the attention of Terry Bray that somehow that you had no interest in it, and that somehow this was.
But this was a councilman saying that. It wasn't me saying
No, it wasn't saying, no, it didn't. No, exactly. You're correct on that. I don't want to accuse you. I'm just saying I don't know how many people are aware of the situation, but it needs to be addressed because the fact is 500 people came here and expected a fair hearing. I presented my case, and somehow if decisions were made before that and that person's making those comments, it's just highly disrespectful. I mean,
Thank you. I just want to make sure it was clear that it wasn't me.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, yep.
Thank you. I don't have any more blue cards. Or anybody? Yeah, Terry, you want to come on up here, Terry. Do you want to proceed, Terry? That's fine. I want you to give us a little bit of just 1 second here while she passes it out, Terry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you can proceed, Terry.
Thank you. Terry Bray, President of Golden State Manufactured Homeowners League, Chapter 616, Lamplighter Mobile Home Park. Attention to City Council. The residents of Lamplighter Mobile Home Park successfully provided the funding necessary to secure legal representation and expertise to further along our partnership with you to establish a much-needed Camarillo mobile home rent stabilization ordinance. Personal contact and documentation is slated to be provided to the City Council, City Attorney, and City Manager prior to the next City Council meeting of August 5th. In follow-up to the 2 separate instances of being personally approached by one of you in the early part of this year and again on July 4th, regarding our efforts as being a waste of time, as I stated in the last council meeting of July 9th, it is highly concerning that this councilman was so confident with arrogance that he never hesitated from publicly making these statements. We don't know if his actions and words were personally to disparage the homeowners with lies, or if his statements were truthful and meant to be informational by saying all of you already decided that a mobile home rent stabilization ordinance is never going to be implemented and that the homeowners of Lamplighter Mobile Home Park are merely wasting their time, energy, money, and blind faith on you. This entire matter is highly disturbing. It brings concerns and now suspicion as to if the homeowners are truly being respected, given fair and impartial process, and are being heard by open and progressive minds. This councilman's actions are clearly violations of the Brown Act. These violations are reprehensible, unprofessional, and harmful to the reputation of the remaining city council, city staff, and to the city of Camarillo as a whole. It is with great disappointment that at this time we ask that this councilman step down from his position immediately and not pursue re-election this November. Thank you for your time.
Your Honor, can I say one thing?
Mrs. Craven has a question.
Yeah. I don't know that his actions violate the Brown Act, but if what you said was said, then that would indicate that all of us had violated the Brown Act. There's a difference in saying something and having it had happened. I just want everybody to know that so far as I know, the council members have not talked about this together. I have not been part of it since the last meeting. There was a meeting, an informational meeting that was held here, and we did make statements. And other than those statements, at the end of that meeting or the conclusion of that item on the agenda, I have not talked to any other council member. And so I just want other people to know that I said what I said at that meeting, but since then I haven't talked to another council member about it.
May I make a comment?
Sure.
Okay. What I have brought to your attention has nothing to do with any of you except for one council person. And that was my concern. Because what was stated was inappropriate and witnessed by a coworker of mine and heard by a coworker of mine. And I was asked, what is that all about and why are they talking to you about your agenda item or your matter here? I'm reporting the facts. I'm a professional in the security realm. My job is to observe and report. My background is stellar. I'm a truthful, honest person trying to make a wrong a right. And it was highly disturbing that this was said. And what we're trying to do, it seemed as though I've always trusted this person for decades. And to hear this come out, it was like, is this real? It was highly confusing. I don't know how to explain it. Jan, you had nothing to do with this. You were stated as an individual whose interests are completely opposite of what you've stated, that you were grandstanding for re-election. And so, therefore, we're just very concerned on why this was said and what the whole motivation behind it is. Either way, it's bad. It's very bad.
We need to clarify one other thing for you. There will not be a council meeting on August 5th. We only meet once in August, and that's at the end of the month.
Are you all going to the fair, or?
We have, well, since about 1988, 89, we haven't met the first meeting in August. time when
Okay.
we can take breaks.
Okay, I'm, just throwing a little levity in there, but the timing in regards to the two legal entities, their intentions is to respond as quick as possible, to move things ahead, to provide a comfort zone amongst yourselves with legal counsel, with the city manager. It's bringing on experts who have been cited numerous times in the aspect of mobile home rent stabilization ordinances. We're giving it our best shot, the best that we can.
Now, I just wanted you to know,
and so I'm just
you got a little
saying-
cushion there.
Yeah, and so I'm just saying that I'm going to need your guidance as to when it would be best to present it to you. I can't say that it's going to be handed to you next week, Monday. It's probably going to be technically available the week of the 5th. So if you're saying you need it way before the 5th, or you need it 2 weeks after the 5th, or in September, I'm not quite sure what you're saying.
You said in here you were going to give it to us prior to our meeting of August 5th. I was just trying to
Right.
inform you that our meeting, we don't have a meeting on August 5th. We have
Right.
a meeting the fourth Wednesday of August.
Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
what is the date of that? I don't have a calendar in front of me.
I think it's August
Mr. Mayor.
27th.
August 27th?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so the intention was to provide it ahead of time for everybody's review, and not just come in here and slam down documents, and there's also possibly a PowerPoint presentation to be provided. So to give you time to review and such. So it sounds like we have a considerable amount of time.
We have, Mr. Little has a question too, Terry.
Well, I don't have
Okay.
a question, just a comment. I think that you should get in touch with city manager, get when your documents are ready, and he will see that it gets distributed to each of us. The fact is that some of us will be out of town and some won't, so, I mean.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
And the city staff will certainly be, the city hall will be open, so.
Right.
That's the way you should handle that.
That's what I'm saying, is that the intentions were to provide it prior to the meeting that I understood was going to be the 5th, to give everybody time to review, consider, digest, or whatever. So now what I'm hearing is that maybe the week prior to the 27th would be good? Is it, yeah?
Some of us are at a conference that week,
Yeah.
so maybe 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
We'll give it our best shot. It's whatever you feel will work best for you. I'm just trying to
Maybe whenever
give
you
you
have it
information
ready.
ahead of time.
Yeah, as soon as you have it ready, I'd send it on.
Okay.
Okay.
Do it that way.
All right.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I don't have any more blue cards. Anybody else on public comments? I think I got everybody here, I believe. Yeah, anybody else like a
Back there.
public comment? Okay, just a second here.
Ready?
Yeah. Is this public comments? No, okay, we'll get to you when we get to that agenda item then.